Hi, my name is Gil Rossi, investor and funds manager. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to share with you a model that I have prepared so that we can put hard numbers, hard figures into what we discussed last week. So let me show you the model. Okay, in this video I uploaded last week, we discussed about understanding your financial position. But it was only concepts. Today we're going to discuss with figures. So here, to recap, we have annual expenses in one axis and net worth in the other, and we can pinpoint or plot here our situation, financial situation here. So with $100,000 in expenses and $140 in net worth, we have a factor of 1.4. So this is the line of 1.4. In the future, we want to be in this line, along this line, anywhere along this line, which is the financial factor line of 25. So financial freedom factor 25. So let's say we want to be here defining our expenses first, which let's assume it's $80,000. That will give us the level of net worth that we need, 2.2 million. So 80 times 25, 2 million. So this will give us our future destination. So that's mainly what we discussed in the future. So how do we get from one point to the next one? We need to save and we need to invest. How much do we need to save? Well, I prepared an example here that I want to share with you, and I want to show you how it works. It's a simplistic model, of course, because it's trying to compress all the variables involved in the next 25 years or so in just one sort of like simplistic calculation. But I think it will give you an idea of what numbers are we talking about. So in this column here, we have all the assumptions regarding your current financial position. So everything in blue is assumptions that you can type in. And so we have the expenses of 100,000 in this example, and then net worth of 140, which is only investments, no home, nothing. The future financial position will be calculated here with these assumptions. So this 4% is the return on investment upon retirement, the conservative one. This is the level of expenses I want to cover, 100%. And this is $80,000 of expenses, and one point here, this does not include rent. So everything except rent, and I'll explain why in a minute. So we have to assume also whether the person is going to own or rent a house at that future position. And if we select own, all this will be blank because this place calculates the rent. So let's move to this example of an investor renter, where the only difference between the previous and this one is that I have selected rent here. So I have included different variables to calculate the rent, the weekly rent and the annual rent. And this gives us an expenses, including rent, of 108. So the 80,000 plus 108. So now we have a more realistic scenario. A person that is not owning a house is investing and saving and paying rent during 25 years. And at the end of the year 25, we'll need 2.7 million in order to live from the proceeds of his investments. A couple of assumptions that I have to make to compute this numbers here. Well, the years that are necessary to reach the goal, you can select it here. Home appreciation, and this is one of the assumptions I'm making. And I'm using Australia as an example, but it can be most developed countries are in the same sort of like ballpark. Since 1993, 25 years, it has increased 6.4% annually, the national median house and unit value, the average. And so 6.4, and this is the inflation in Australia, which is 2.6 per year. So if I want to remove the inflation from this 6.4, because remember, all the figures here, one thing that I want to clarify are in constant currency and in real interest rates. So the home appreciation has been 3.8%. This is in real terms. So above inflation, it has gone up 3.8%. So this is home appreciation I am including here. Of course, now it's not working because this person doesn't own a house, but in the future, in the next examples, we'll see. Well, the years to pay the mortgage, I am assuming the same as the years to goal. This is because this is the way the model works. Mortgage interest rate 6%, and this is again something I have checked in Australia, and it's also similar in other developed countries. You see, from 1993, the interest rate, the mortgage was 10%, and now it's gone down to around 4%. And because we are in low interest rates scenarios, you see here, almost the lowest that they have been in the past since 1960s, 50-something years. So I am going to assume that the next 25 years will have something average. So this is why I'm assuming 6%. And then the return on investment during the accumulation period. So all these investing savings that you're going to save and invest every year from now until year 25 will yield a return that I'm assuming 7%. And again, this is something that I've checked the historical average in Australia, but is similar also in the US and in Europe. There has been 9.8% appreciation in the last 25 years, and if I remove inflation, it will give me 7% real return. So that's why I'm using 7% here. I'm just using the historical averages taken 25 years. Probably I'm wrong here. You never know, because future, nobody knows what's going to bring. But at least I think it will give you in the ballpark what levels you need to save if the future sort of like resembles the past. So one thing I want to explain, why what we have here is three components. The first one is the investment savings. So this is what you have to save and put it to invest in stock market, in the stock market in this case. This is the mortgage payment that you're going to make that this person will not make. But because I want to make comparable all these scenarios that we're going to show you in a minute, I need to include the rent, because a person that is not owning a house is going to rent, and the person that is owning a house will not rent, but will pay a mortgage, which in essence is similar to rent, because you have interests, and you have a component in the mortgage, you have a component of investment savings, which is the part that you pay back of your loan, and a portion of renting, because the interest is going to be similar to a rent. So in essence, to make everybody, so all the examples comparable, we have to add these three components, and will give us a figure that I'm calling savings necessary to reach goal per year. And this is going to be comparable between the different scenarios. So let's move to our next scenario. So now let's see another example. This is an investor owner, a person who, with $140,000 of net worth to pay the down payment for a house of $700, will opt to be a homeowner. That's perfectly fine to use it as a path to your financial goal. In this case, the assumptions are the same: $80,000 the future expenses, and because the person is going to keep owning the house upon retirement, then this is the expenses that we're going to consider in the calculation of the future net worth of $2 million. If you see here, if you compare this person with the previous one, the investor renter, this person needed to save $60,000 roughly, and this one $75,000. So why the difference? And the difference is here. This person will have a $700,000 home that will appreciate during 25 years at this 3.8% of appreciation per year, will give a future value of the house of 1.8 million almost in real terms. So this person in fact will be accumulating by saving $75,000 will be accumulating $2 million outside the home by saving this 31 and investing them, and then 1.8 million in his house by paying this mortgage. So in fact, he's getting 3.7 million of net worth, but he's using this 1.7 to live in it, and that could be, if you were investing this at the 4%, that would be roughly 87, almost what you need to live. So in essence, by living in your own home, you're paying a heck of a high rent. So what happens if this person decides to go the home ownership route from day 0 to year 25, and then decides to sell the house and rent? So this is exactly the same example, but the person now is going to rent the same house that he sold, in essence, to make the things more comparable. And he's going to pay this weekly rent and this $28,000 of annual rent, which will have to be added to his annual expenses. And of course, now instead of the 2 million that we had before is 2.7 million, but the 2.7 million will come from the sale proceeds part, and the rest is what he has to save and invest aside from his house. So the house is going to be valued at the same as before, as 1.7, but I'm assuming here that when you sell a house, you only receive, let's say, in cash or a disposal income, or whatever you call it, 95%, because you have expenses. So this will be his or her situation in this case. And you see now that the $75,000 that he had to save and invest in mortgage and interest payments now is going to be less. The same amount of mortgage, because we're talking about the same house. But now he's reducing this to half, because as you see here, part of that is going to come from, part of his net worth is going to come from his house, even though he's going to increase his expenses per year, and of course that means that at the same financial freedom factor, he will have to increase his objective net worth. that compensates with selling the house and using that as for living expenses. Of course, we have to understand that all this is based on assumptions. So if we change the assumptions and we make the weekly rent much more expensive, or maybe the home appreciation smaller, or whatever we touch here, probably this equation doesn't look that neat. But this is as everything, you have to assume something. So this is an example. You can play with it because the model is going to be in the description below, and you can use it. So one thing here, that if we compare this person with the renter, so this person was starting with a 140, rented his whole life in essence, and upon retirement he also kept renting, and this is what this person has to save, 58,000 a year between investments and rent. And this person, 59, so it's almost the same. So in conclusion, as you can see, there is no right or wrong way. It depends quite a lot in your personality and your discipline. How do you feel that you can manage your investments? So if you are a person that is not very knowledgeable about investing in the stock market, probably owning a house is a good thing, because it allows you to invest just by living in the house and paying the mortgage. If you are a person that prefers to invest and take more control of the finances and doesn't need someone to sort of like obligate you to save, you are a more type of disciplined person, you can go on the investing and renting way. So any of these options are going to be good, as long as it's something that you start doing as soon as possible. The model, as you can see, has its limitations. It doesn't include taxes, because the position of taxes depends on every person. For example, if you know that when you buy a house, you can deduct your interests, and that is not taken into consideration in the model. But on the other side, owning a house has costs that in taxes and maintenance and things like that are not included in the model either. So I think that they cancel into each other. So I think the model can give you a sort of like an understanding of where you should be aiming. It's not perfect. You can play with the model, use your own variables, and see what results you get. I would love to have your comments, and let me know if there's any example that you want to do, or you get stuck in some of the explanations. I would love to have your inputs on the comments, and we can go back later to them in a future video. Thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can get alerts for the next videos, and see you in the next video.